Good afternoon. My name is Pat O'Mara and I'm a dairy farmer based in Tipperary. My Nuffield topic is how can Irish farmers be encouraged to meet greenhouse gas emissions targets? And I want to thank my sponsor, the Golden Jubilee Trust Fund, who made this study possible. They say travel broadens the mind, and this is really true of my Nuffield journey. As part of my travels, I gained first-hand experience of a wide range of initiatives and met inspiring people. I spent some time in Kenya where I got to meet the people who will be worst affected by climate change. I also spent time in Qatar, the second largest natural gas exporter in the world. And in the picture there is their largest dairy farm. Their focus was clearly on food security and not greenhouse gas emissions. I also visited FAO in Rome and the EU Commission in Brussels to get a first-hand understanding of the drivers behind policy change. The final picture shows an anaerobic digester in Northern Ireland, an example that when certain policy decisions are made, a viable farming alternative can be created. It is important to put greenhouse gas emissions in context. Firstly, through the Paris Agreement, Ireland has signed up to legally blinding emissions targets. Secondly, it might be due to having limited heavy industry in Ireland, but agriculture accounts for 1/3 of our greenhouse gas emissions. As part of Ireland's Climate Action Plan, we need to reduce overall emissions by 40% by 2030. On the agri side of the target is to reduce our emissions by 10 to 15% by 2030. And while that 10 to 15% seems achievable at first glance, the challenge is highlighted when we consider that in the period 2011 to 2017, greenhouse gas emissions rose by nearly 13%, largely driven by the expansion of the dairy herd. The target to drive and to reduce greenhouse gas emissions is made more challenging when we consider that we have to feed a growing world population. Does it make sense to move production to areas of lower carbon efficiencies and larger and carbon footprint? Much work has been completed in terms of researching potential technologies to reduce emissions. The challenge is around getting a speedy adoption at farm level. In the UK, 2 farmers developed the Farm Carbon Toolkit. This is about educating and developing a tailored farm plan to reduce emissions. 3,500 farmers have completed farm plans since the start of this year. In France, they have developed a low-carbon dairy farm. Their objective is to attract 60,000 dairy farmers and to reduce overall emissions by 2 million tonnes of carbon equivalent. They aim to achieve this by delivering both improved sustainability and higher profits. To date, 9,300 dairy farmers are involved. The EQIP scheme is part of the USA Farm Bill, and it provides both technical assistance and financial incentives to deliver reduced greenhouse gas emissions. The technical assistance is the key to its success. From my travels, it is clear we need to make greenhouse gas emissions relevant to farmers through education and language. As part of the Climate Action Plan, CHAG has developed a marginal abatement cost curve that through 27 measures will deliver on the sector's 2030 targets. We are ahead of the game with such a detailed plan compared to other countries. There are 4 main elements to the curve. Stabilise methane emissions through encouraging efficiency gains, but also controlling the overall size of the national herd. Fertiliser management through low emission slurry spreading, protected urea. Sequestering carbon in peatland and forestry, and fossil fuel displacement through biomass, biodiesel, and anaerobic digestion. CAP funds are a key potential driver to encourage the uptake of technologies that will deliver the MAC curve. In Pillar 1, the basic farm payment through regulation with good farming practice and nitrates and derogation will drive certain behaviours, and these can now be further aided by the proposed eco schemes, where it is proposed that up to 30% of basic farm payment will be paid on voluntary annual schemes. In Pillar 2, we have much more flexibility and can develop new schemes such as the Plan New Reps pilot. In addition, TAMS has been a key enabler of change through capital investment grant aid. As part of my studies, 280 farmers completed an online survey. This survey was distributed through discussion groups, Twitter, Nuffield Ireland alumni, and personal contacts. The survey is weighted on younger, more intensive farming, dairying, and larger scale, but there are some very interesting findings. Firstly, expansion plans. While the majority outlined that they will maintain their livestock numbers, 41% outlined a plan to expand their numbers, while only 8% would reduce numbers over the next 3 years. In terms of understanding the implications of the greenhouse gas emissions on farms, 54% of responders had either partial, little, or no understanding of it. And looking at the MAC curve, that figure increased to 76% had either partial, little, or no understanding of the implications of the MAC curve on their farm. Looking then at the likelihood of adopting technology based on the level of grant aid. As most of you are aware, young trained farmers can avail of 60% grant aid at the moment, and all other farmers can avail of 40% grant aid if they meet certain criteria. When asked about adopting low emission spreading slurry, 33% that they said they would definitely carry it out at the lower grant aid, while this rose to 48% with the higher grant aid. Similarly, when asked about using 100% AI, if the grant aid was 40%, 34% said they would definitely do it, and this increased to 56% with the higher grant aid. Also, when asked about solar panels and PV, the figure doubled from 22 to 44% as the grant aid increased. I also asked what type of land should basic farm payment be paid on. 76% said it should be paid on areas of fields that are planted or let go wild. 66% said it should be paid on re-wetted and peatland, and 84% said to pay it on zones around on waterways. I want to move on to my recommendations. Firstly, we need to build on the success of the Harvest 2020 Forum and establish a wider agricultural sustainability stakeholder forum. After reviewing how the smoking ban in the workplace and the plastic bag levies were such successes, it is clear that we need to provide technical support to deliver behavioural change to speed up the adoption of the measures outlined in the MAC curve. The growth in emissions between 2011 and 2017 was driven by the expansion of the dairy herd. This, coupled with the survey findings, it is clear that we need to encourage land to stay in extensive beef production rather than moving into more intensive dairy farming. We need to establish a low greenhouse gas emissions beef brand. With 42% of the world's carbon stored in peatland, while it only accounts for 3% of the land surface area, it is simply too large an area to ignore, and we need to establish a peatland re-wetting scheme. The next REPS needs to include a compulsory element on greenhouse gas emissions reductions. The eco schemes should be aimed at encouraging the adoption of measures in the MAC. I also recommend to have the greatest impact that they should be multi-year rather than the proposed annual schemes. And finally, the Farm Waste Management Scheme was a huge success in Ireland. 6% grant aid was a major driver of that investment. Farmers will respond to 60% grant aid on targeted investments and will deliver huge change. We should have a well-funded TAM scheme with 60% grant aid available on specific items. I would like to conclude by thanking a number of people. Firstly, the sponsors of Nuffield Ireland. Without you, this journey would not have been possible. Secondly, I want to thank John, Jeff and Karen in Nuffield Ireland. I want to thank all the people that helped me on this study. I want to thank my fellow Nuffielders and particularly the class of 19. Finally, I want to thank my family and particularly my wife Siobhan, who have provided massive support over the past 2 years to me. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to me today, and I look forward to engaging with many of you over the coming months. Thank you.